What's up, guys? Welcome back to Cough Country. It is Steve with your cannabis news. I'm coming to you from the late night green set. It's going to be Cough Country's newest panel-style cannabis talk show. It's going to be really, really cool. Be sure to keep an eye out for it. It's coming to you soon. But for now, settle in, take a puff, get ready, because the news is happening and I'm about to lay it on you. We start off with Panama Red. We are talking Panama Red. It's the strains of yesterday and we are hitting on the psychedelic wonder strain. I will tell you all about it. And then the DEA is being all DEA about rescheduling. Are they seriously pushing back on it? And finally, you might have heard of the runner's high, but I'll tell you what happens when you put cannabis in the mix. That's all happening right now on Cough Country News.
No sticks, no seeds, just news.
From the Cough Country News Desk, it's Steve with your cannabis news.
So we're picking back up with our series on strains of yesterday, and it's about time we talked about our favorite redhead, Panama Red. Now, there are all sorts of stories out there of people trying it back in the day and coming back around asking, what the hell was that? It was the most psychedelic high out of anything people could get their hands on, and they were paying top dollar to do it. Panama Red was not the cheap option, often costing stoners twice what they were used to paying. But for a pure sativa landrace with a mellow, happy onset that rushed to an intense, almost trippy high, it was well worth every penny. The Panamanian red weed was, of course, native to Panama, and its tropical mountains nestled right above the South American continent, which is probably how it got there in the first place. It was mostly grown on the Pacific side of the country, where the rain's a little gentler and the land a little friendlier to agriculture. And in the 70s, they were growing tons of it. The locals used cannabis, but not in the way Americans and Europeans did. And that's where most of it wound up going. But once the cocaine trade came to town, that started the decline of the red bud. Cocaine offered farmers more bang for their illegal buck, and hardened criminal organizations kind of encouraged the shift. Cannabis stuck around, but it's nothing like what it once was. They say the only place that really continued the tradition of growing the pure native strain was on the sparsely populated Pearl Islands off the south coast, where apparently the climate is absolutely perfect for growing cannabis. I mean, mild temperatures, consistent breeze, good soil and humidity, and dense forests kept the groves from being found out. It was removed from the mainland, so not much was going on there. So we probably have that island chain to thank for keeping Panama Red from going extinct. So no one knows exactly when it started appearing in the States, but in the 70s, it was so popular it was being referenced on TV and in film, like in the 1976 movie Panama Red, featuring the legendary porn actor John Holmes. And the group New Riders of the Purple Sage even have the strain to thank for their only real hit, Panama Red. Panama Red. It'll steal your woman, then it'll rob your head. Panama Red in 1973. Thank you. Stop. As opposed to some other strains that had environmental factors to thank for their unique traits, Panamanian gets its rusty color through its genetics. It's passed on through an elevated amount of anthocyanins, a type of flavonoid you find in the skins of blueberries and grapes, bringing out the reddish and purplish hues. The bud's tall and thin, like a true sativa, covered in small hairs that turn red as the plant matures. But because it takes an incredibly long time to grow and can reach over 6 feet tall, it fell out of popularity with the cultivators who wanted a quicker, easier turnaround. So today, true Panama Red is incredibly hard to find in its pure form. But some have said they still are able to find it. So if you've had the privilege to light up the red, let me know in the comments. I want to hear about it. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more news after a word from our friendly sponsor.
This is cannabis. And this is cannabis. And this is cannabis. And this is cannabis. When you put them all together, you've got medicine.
Thanks for sticking around, guys. See, that wasn't too bad. Let's get back into the news, yeah? So reports are swirling saying that the DEA is pushing back on the Biden administration and the HHS's recommendation to move cannabis to a Schedule III substance. And they're doing this all while Biden is campaigning, wearing the rescheduling move like a feather in his cap. Now, apparently, someone familiar with the matter says the DEA is trying to refute a bunch of the claims the HHS made when they recommended the cannabis be moved. So while they are carrying out their own review, they're trying to argue that cannabis has any medical value at all. I mean, seriously, that's almost not even a question anymore. There's an FDA-approved cannabis medication. The science, that little bit of science that is allowed to happen, has been listing the medicinal value of compounds like CBD for years. 38 states have adopted medical cannabis programs, but the DEA is flipping all that the bird and going, nope, I don't see any medical benefits at all. And I don't even know how they have the cojones to even pretend like that's true. The Congressional Research Service says it's likely the DEA will wind up rescheduling, based on past precedent, but the DEA has a long history of hating on cannabis, let alone its past. A former administrator that served under Trump said the science doesn't support rescheduling of marijuana. Timothy Shea, a former DEA head, said doing that will harm public health and safety. Paul Armentano, the deputy director of NORML, said, quote, the DEA historically has been hostile to any efforts to amend marijuana's federal status, even once going so far as to overrule its own administrative law judge in order to keep cannabis from being removed from its Schedule I placement. He's talking about DEA Judge Francis Young in 1988, saying marijuana in its natural form is one of the safest, therapeutically active substances known to man. By any measure of rational analysis, marijuana can be safely used within a supervised routine of medical care. That's their own guy saying it. And the administrator at the time went to huge lengths to overturn his ruling and keep marijuana illegal. Armentano continued, given this history, one would be hardly hard-pressed to presume that there are some within the agency who wish to cling to their flat earth cannabis policies at all costs. So no one knows when the DEA will finally make its decision, but many are guessing it'll be closer to the November election coming up. The potential of descheduling is significantly helping Biden's poll numbers, and he's starting to put the pressure on the DEA to come around. He mentioned it in his State of the Union address, a historic first. Kamala Harris brought it up in a round table on marijuana policy as well. And beyond that, governors and lawmakers from legal states are all screaming for something to be done. And it's all getting pretty hard to ignore. There is a growing community of runners and marathoners out there that are using cannabis to enhance their experience. They're saying it reduces the pain associated with long-distance running, and it promotes a more meditative connection to the mind and body during exercise. Quote, it gives running a whole new feeling. I'm more focused and connected to the experience, says a member of Brooklyn's Rage and Release Marijuana Running Club that's 400 members strong. The phenomenon of the runner's high is actually an engagement of the endocannabinoid system, so cannabis having an effect like this kind of makes sense. A runner's high occurs naturally in the body through prolonged periods of exercise by triggering the fight or flight systems in the body. Right, it clicks on the euphoric and anti-anxiety mechanisms mostly through aerobic exercises, like running or cycling. The endocannabinoids get this whole thing going by binding to the CB1 and CB2 receptors throughout the body. CB1 gets you that sense of euphoria. That's where the THC goes. The CB2 receptor is more functional in pain reduction, and that's where CBD and all its inflammatory goodness shines. But the body naturally does this. You don't need cannabis to get you there. So what happens when you throw cannabis into the mix, right? Well, it's going to kickstart this whole process and get you there quicker. And then it produces a synergistic effect with the naturally occurring cannabinoids as they come up, all multiplying the runner's high experience. Now, what you're doing, quote, is allowing your brain to check out, says Tony Fuhr, founder of the cannabis-infused sports drink company Off Field that is catering to athletes. Your energy balance is switching. Your brain is taking less energy, which means less calories. It's applying it to your body that needs it most. So you're going to be performing better for longer that way. The overall experience is getting out of your head and into your run and actually finding that enjoyment in the occasion. So the University of Colorado did a study back in July where they asked people to run with cannabis and run without it. Pretty much everyone enjoyed their buzzed run more and said there was less pain. 60% said it increased their focus, and 45% said it made the workout more fun. Then they brought them into a lab to figure it all out. They had people run on the treadmill, some using THC, some CBD. Now, both groups felt that elevated runner's high, but the CBD group won out. Still, researchers think it's a combination of the two that really makes the difference. Funny enough, cannabis didn't really help people's performance though, with most of the participants running just a touch slower than they did without cannabis. And while it was an overall better run, people said they felt like they had to work a little bit harder when they were using THC. Still, the World Doping Agency lists cannabis as a banned substance. In 2021, American sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson tested positive for marijuana right after the Olympic trials, and then they barred her from competition, even though there was a lot of backlash with people saying cannabis wasn't a performance-enhancing drug. All right, guys, thanks so much for checking us out. That's the news. Be sure you like, subscribe, and follow. Please let your friends know so they don't miss all this good stuff too. And next time, we'll see you then, where it's always no sticks, no seeds, just news. Thanks so much, guys.